Language gives us the power to be able to name things. That includes our own internal experience. If we've been taught to understand and label these.
I got this feeling inside my bones.
If we can name these internal experiences, these thoughts and feelings, then perhaps we're part of the way towards managing them. Not getting rid of them, but perhaps coexisting with them and not being taken over by them. And what you may be feeling right now may be grief. A number of different griefs, perhaps. We're feeling that the world has changed, and it has.
Can I sail through the changing ocean tides?
We know this is temporary, but it doesn't feel that way, and we realize things will be different. The loss of normalcy, the fear of economic toll, the loss of connection, this is hitting us, and we're grieving collectively. We're not used to this kind of collective grief in the air. And as well as grief about loss, we're also experiencing anticipatory grief. Anticipatory grief is that feeling we get about what the future holds when it's uncertain. This might be about someone we hold dear, who we fear we may lose, like a parent, but it's also about more broadly imagined futures. There's a storm coming. There's something bad out there. With a virus, this kind of grief is confusing for people. Our primal mind knows that something bad is happening, but we can't see it. This breaks our sense of safety. We're feeling that loss of safety. And on a global level, I don't think we've collectively lost our sense of general safety like this before. Individually or as small groups, people have felt this. But all together, this is new. We're grieving on a micro and at a macro level. So what can we do? Well, understanding the stages of grief is a start, but remember that the stages aren't linear. They may not happen in this order. It's not a map for this unknown world, but it helps us to start somewhere. Now, there's denial, which is what we saw a lot of early on. This virus won't affect us. There's anger. You're making me stay at home and taking away my activities. There's bargaining. Okay, if I physically distance for 4 weeks, everything will be better, right? There's sadness. I don't know when all this will end. And finally, there's acceptance. This is happening. I have to figure out how to proceed. So acceptance, as you might imagine, is where the real power lies. We find control in acceptance. I can wash my hands, I can keep a safe distance, I can learn how to work virtually. But this other stage of anticipatory grief is the mind going to the future and anticipating the worst. Unhealthy anticipatory grief is really anxiety, and that's the feeling we're talking about. Our minds begin to show us images, we see the worst scenarios, that's our minds being protective. Our goal is not to ignore these images or try to make them go away. Your mind won't let you do that, and it can be painful to try and force it to. The goal is to try to find balance in the things you're thinking. If you feel the worst image taking shape, make yourself think of the best image. We all get a little sick and the world continues. Not everyone you love dies. Maybe no one I love does, because we're all taking the right steps. Neither scenario should be ignored, but neither should dominate either good or bad. Now, to calm yourself, you want to come into the present. And this will be familiar advice to anyone who's meditated or practiced mindfulness, but people are always surprised as to how useful this can be. You could just name 5 things in the room. There's a computer, a chair, a picture of the dog, an old rug, and a coffee mug. It's that simple. Breathe. Realize that in the present moment, nothing you've anticipated has happened. At this moment, you're okay. You have food. You're not sick. Use your senses and think about what they feel. The desk is hard. The blanket is soft. I can feel the breath coming into my nose. This really will work to dampen some of that pain. You can also think about how to let go of what you can't control. What your neighbor is doing is out of your control. What's in your control is staying at least 2 meters from them and washing your hands. Focus on that. And finally, we wonder what meaning we'll find in all of this. Some people, and I agree with them, believe we will find light in these times. Even now, people are realizing that they can connect through technology. They're not as remote as they thought. They're realizing they can use their phones for long conversations. They're appreciating walks. I believe we'll continue to find meaning now and when we transition to the next stage of dealing with COVID-19. Even after watching this, if you're still feeling overwhelmed with grief, stick with us. There's something powerful about naming this as grief. It helps us feel what's inside of us. When you name it, you feel it, and it moves through you. Emotions need motion. It's important we acknowledge what we go through. It's been commented that we are the first generation to have feelings about our feelings. We tell ourselves things like, I feel sad, but I shouldn't feel that. Other people have it worse. We should stop at the first feeling. I feel sad. Let me go for 5 minutes to feel sad. Your work is to feel your sadness and fear and anger, whether or not someone else is feeling something. Fighting it doesn't help because your body is producing the feeling. If we allow the feelings to happen, they'll happen in an orderly way, and it empowers us. Then we're not victims. So let yourself feel the grief. Give yourself permission to stop and experience it, and then keep going. I'll see you tomorrow.